And now I was apparently in a race I didn't sign up for. Monster trucks twice my size were crushing cars like soda cans. I somehow managed to avoid them all by driving underneath one of their jumps. The crowd went wild, fireworks went off, and then the floor collapsed beneath me, dropping me into a giant shopping mall. I tried to brake but my car slid across the tile floor, knocking over displays of TVs that all turned on at once, showing my crash from 12 different angles. I tried to exit through the food court but got stuck between two fast food counters. An NPC chef threw a burger at my windshield and yelled "drive-through means outside." I finally forced my way out, only to find it had started raining giant rubber ducks. They were bouncing everywhere, knocking over streetlights and cars. I tried to dodge them but one landed on my hood and now I was driving with a huge yellow duck blocking my view. The raccoon tried pushing it off but it was stuck. I hit a ramp thinking the jump might shake it loose. Instead I landed on top of a moving blimp. I didn't even know this game had blimps. I drove across it like it was a bridge, jumped off the other side, and landed back on the highway, where for some reason there was now a full-on dinosaur stampede. I swerved through triceratops and velociraptors like I was playing prehistoric Frogger, finally making it to an open road, where I thought I could relax, but then the screen flashed warning, incoming meteor shower, and the sky lit up with flaming rocks falling all around me. I dodged as best I could but one hit the road in front of me, launching my car into the air so high I could see the whole map. When I landed, I was in a desert with no roads, just sand dunes and cactus. I tried to drive over them but my car got stuck in one, the raccoon side, pulled out a tiny wrench, and started fixing the engine like it was the most normal thing in the world. The raccoon finished tightening something under the hood, slammed it shut with more authority than any mechanic I've ever met, and hopped back into the passenger seat like, "All right, try it now." So I revved the engine and it roared back to life but now it sounded like a lion gargling marbles. I floored it and we blasted over the dunes like a rocket-powered camel. The desert was endless but then I spotted a small road in the distance, except when I got closer, I realized it wasn't a road at all. It was a massive conveyor belt carrying hundreds of shopping carts for no reason. I tried to drive along it but the belt dragged me backwards into a giant warehouse. Inside were thousands of NPCs pushing carts around like they were in some kind of grocery cart Grand Prix. One bumped into me and challenged me to a race without warning. Suddenly the game was counting down from 3 and I had no choice. I gunned the engine, dodging milk cartons, flying baguettes, and at least one NPC riding a cart like a skateboard. The finish line was just a glowing exit door. I burst through it and ended up back in the city but this time in the middle of rush hour. The streets were jammed with cars honking, an ambulance, and what looked like a marching band trying to cross the intersection. I swerved onto the sidewalk to avoid the jam, accidentally knocking over a guy selling balloons. All the balloons got tangled around my car so now I looked like a festive parade float. The raccoon thought this was hilarious and started popping them one by one with its claws. Each pop made a pedestrian scream like I'd just set off fireworks. I turned down a narrow alley to escape the chaos, but the alley ended in a ramp leading up to the roof of a parking garage. I took it without hesitation and somehow ended up driving across rooftops like I was in an action movie, jumping from building to building, at one point landing in someone's rooftop swimming pool. I tried to reverse out but the game glitched, and my car floated on the water like a boat, so obviously I started steering it like a yacht. A seagull landed on the hood, dropped a sandwich, and just stared at me like I was invading its personal marina. I finally found a ramp down back to the streets but the landing put me right into a massive street race I didn't know was happening. All the other racers had tuned sports cars while I still had balloon strings trailing from my spoiler, but for some reason my car was now supercharged from the rooftop pool incident. I sped ahead, weaving through traffic, taking shortcuts over sidewalks, and somehow avoided 3 separate crashes that looked like they belonged in a Michael Bay movie. Halfway through the race a giant blimp flew overhead dropping crates marked mystery power up. I hit one and suddenly my car had monster truck wheels, crushing everything in my path including the finish line, which I completely drove over instead of through. The game still gave me first place. Fireworks went off, and a mariachi band started playing next to my car. I tried to drive away but the mariachi band followed me, running behind the car while playing trumpets at full blast. We ended up in a park where some NPCs were doing yoga. My car backfired so loud one guy fell out of a tree pose and rolled down a hill. I decided to leave before they started throwing smoothies at me, but as I pulled onto the main road, my minimap started flashing with a new objective: escape the giant rolling donut. I didn't even have time to question it before a massive pink frosted donut the size of a building came rolling down the street crushing everything. I slammed the gas, weaving through traffic, at one point using a ramp to jump over a construction site. The donut followed like it had a personal vendetta against me. I finally lost it by diving into an underground parking lot, but when I emerged on the other side I was no longer in the city. I was in the middle of a snowy mountain road. My tires instantly started sliding. The raccoon pulled out a snowboard and jumped out like it was ready to go hit the slopes. I was left alone trying to keep the car from spinning into the guardrail. Of course I failed and launched off the road, somehow landing on a ski lift. I rode it up the mountain in my car. NPC skiers were waving at me like this was normal. At the top there was a huge frozen lake, so naturally I drove onto it. The ice cracked immediately and my car started sinking. Just when I thought it was game over, a whale surfaced under me and launched my car into the air, sending me flying over the mountain and back into the desert again. I landed on a moving train this time, drove across the roof of the carriages, and then down into the engine room where the train conductor challenged me to a drag race against the train itself. Somehow I won, which made no sense, and the game rewarded me with a golden spoiler that didn't fit my car so it just hovered awkwardly behind me, glowing like a divine breadstick. I headed back into the city thinking maybe things would calm down. But instead I drove straight into a flash mob of dancing NPCs dressed as bananas. They completely blocked the road, so I had to drive through them slowly while they all twerked aggressively at my car. One banana NPC jumped on my hood and started breakdancing. The raccoon had now returned and was clapping along like it was enjoying the show. I finally broke free from the banana blockade, only to be hit by a random flying cow. No explanation, it just happened. The impact spun me into a taco stand. Tacos went everywhere. One landed perfectly on my rearview mirror and stayed there for the rest of the drive like a trophy. I took a side road to escape and ended up in a tunnel where gravity decided to stop working. My car floated up to the ceiling, headlights pointing at the floor. I had to steer upside down until I finally popped out the other side and landed in a swamp. Crocodiles everywhere. One chased me for a bit until it got distracted by an ice cream truck. I powered through the mud, found a dirt road, and took off again, not realizing that up ahead was a gigantic mud volcano that suddenly erupted right in the middle of the road, blasting mud, car parts, and at least one confused NPC into the air. My windshield got coated instantly so I was driving blind. The raccoon wiped a little peephole with its tail so I could at least see a blurry outline of what looked like a ramp made of abandoned furniture. I hit it at full speed without thinking. My car flew over the volcano, through a flock of flamingos, and landed perfectly on a beach, except the beach wasn't empty. It was hosting a sandcastle building competition with sand sculptures taller than houses. I accidentally drove through one shaped like a dragon, decapitating it instantly. The crowd gasped, and the game popped up a penalty message saying -10 points for dragon destruction. I kept going, weaving between giant sand towers until I reached the water's edge. thinking maybe I could just cruise along the shoreline, but the tide came in like a tsunami, picking up my car and tossing it into the ocean like a toy. I sank fast, but instead of a game over, I hit the ocean floor where there was a fully functioning underwater racetrack lit by glowing jellyfish. I looked over and realized the raccoon now had a snorkel on. Somehow we could still drive down there, dodging schools of fish, weaving around coral arches, and overtaking a submarine that honked at me like it was offended. I hit a jump ring that launched us back to the surface, where we burst out of the water like a breaching whale and landed on a pirate ship. The pirates didn't even flinch, they just started cheering like we were some kind of halftime entertainment. One pirate handed me a treasure chest through the window. I opened it and inside was a single car horn that played La Cucaracha. I installed it immediately because priorities. I drove off the ship using a plank like a ramp and landed back in the city again, but now it was nighttime, neon lights everywhere, the streets full of sports cars racing illegally. I joined without asking, instantly slamming into a guy who was driving a hearse for some reason. The hearse driver didn't care, he just kept racing like nothing happened. The course took us through construction sites, over rooftops, through a bowling alley where my car became the bowling ball, knocking down all 10 pins and getting a strike bonus. Halfway through the race, a UFO descended and started abducting random racers. One beam caught me, but instead of taking my whole car it only stole my doors. Now I was racing doorless like some kind of stripped down dune buggy, wind blasting in, pedestrians pointing and laughing, the raccoon clinging to the seat for dear life. I somehow still finished second, but the prize was a pair of fuzzy dice the size of basketballs, which I immediately hung from the rearview mirror even though they blocked half my vision. I tried to drive calmly for once, but the minimap suddenly lit up with a challenge called Outrun the Parade Float. I didn't even have time to think before a massive float shaped like a